Right, let's kick off then with Sarah. Sarah Hardacre, based in Barrow for this great exhibition. Sarah, I will pull up your slides if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you're doing.
Sure. Morning, everybody, and thanks very much for having me on the call to talk about the project. So yeah, I've been in Barrow as a resident artist, artist in residence, if you like, with Art Gene. It's probably been about 6 months now. The project's ended up lasting a lot longer than we initially thought it might, but that has allowed me more time delving into the archives, which is something that I love. And yeah, as Tom said, the result of my residency, an exhibition, is opening this evening between 6:30 and 8:30 outside the town hall and the forum, and in various businesses and shops along Duke Street. There will be free soup, so come along and join us. We will keep you warm as well as entertained. The project was born out of the Heritage England High Street Action Zone initiatives that have been happening up and down the country, and as well as being hosted by Art Gene, it is supported by and funded by Barrowfull, and it's part of a wider 4-year programme which will culminate in a social history conference and exhibition at Art Gene in January 2024. There have been commissions with Signal Film and Media, the Theatre Factory, and Fon, Full of Noises as well. So all of these people, including myself, will all come together again for the Social History Conference that will take place in January. Can you pull up the next slide for me, please, Tom? So the residency for me, I work in collage and screen print, and I'm very much a kind of an archivist in my own visual arts practice in a way. I love working with archives, and archives are always my starting point to kind of research visual histories as well as social histories. So my first port of call on the project was to go to the Cumbria archives at Barrow Library. I was lucky enough to work with Susan Benson, who is absolute, her knowledge is just yeah, she's a living legend and has been so helpful and supportive in this project. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy to work with Susan. And yeah, we were looking for the histories of literally the lost shops of Duke Street. In this image that you can see here, the building on the far right, the United Friendly Insurance Company Limited, and Cooper's, which was a tea store just to the left of it, are no longer on the street. They yeah, they've both been demolished. Duke Street over the years has been plagued by sort of like subsidence and all sorts of issues. But the building next to it that you can see looks like a Chinese restaurant is still a Chinese restaurant today. And then we had Middleton's Hairdressers, which was a shop that was of particular interest to me. And I met quite a few people through social engagement who'd done internships and apprenticeships there. Next slide, please, Tom. So my process was to as well as working purely with the archival images, was to turn some of these images into collages and start trying to tell some of the other social histories that we received through public engagement. We did some collage workshops with Women's Community Matters. We also did some engagement projects with Age Concern, and also held a memory stall at Barrow Market. So sharing the archival images and getting people to share their stories, their memories, and kind of add those very personal stories in. So I was really taken by this image of Jean's fish shop, Jean's and Sons Fish Shop, which was a wet fish shop that loads of people spoke about. And I've overlaid it with images of, is it bronze bream and I think they're carp, if I remember, I can't remember rightly, but I did some research and found out what fish were caught relatively often in the local rivers here. And we also found out that next door to Jean's, and we found this out through community engagement, that rather kind of like innocent looking building next door, or that doesn't look like much, the RAOB, that apparently stands for the Royal Andaluvian Order of the Buffalo, which I would never have known and would never have found out had it not have been for the community of Barrow sharing their stories and memories. And I think the Royal Andaluvian Order of the Buffalo is a little bit like the Masonic Lodge, but sort of like involves, local businessmen. But
We've got one of those in Carlisle as well, Sarah.
Oh, is there?
I'm watching Sue mouth something. Sue, just pause there, Sarah. Sue, what's the RAOB in Carlisle? Oh, can't hear Sue.
It's
There we go.
the Buffs, as they used to be known in Carlisle. It's a friendly society, like the Oddfellows as well. I think rather than a Masonic thing, it was a friendly society. Carlisle Folk Club used to run in the Buffs at one stage in Fisher Street. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful to know that they're still going. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Sue. That's amazing to know that that's still, that it's still going. I did some research and looked and saw that the order, as it were, was still going. But I don't know if that's something quite specific to up here. I've never seen any down in Manchester or anywhere, but yeah, fantastic.
I love the guy looking into the fish shop window.
I really like that. I think whenever I'm looking through the archive, it's the kind of people sometimes in these images that really sort of tell the story. So next slide, please, Tom. And here's another collage that I've made that references the history. It's probably not the best photograph I have of it. We only put this up on Wednesday. So this was a collage that I made that we've then turned into a really big 3-meter paste up that's gone onto this gable end wall. And this is where, in the first image, is where Cooper's tea shop would have been at number 82, that's now demolished. And TNT Records, which is at number 84, is where Middleton's hairdressers used to be. And lots of people remembered Middleton's hairdressers. So this is a collage that I made, kind of honouring the memory of Middleton's, really. There's 2 hairstyles in there that were Middleton's kind of like hairstyles that they promoted, and then an image that we've got of the Middleton staff going on a day trip out. So the exhibition itself will be kind of a mixture of collages that I've made with my own personal interpretations from stories we've gathered, alongside archival images. Next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. So the rest of the exhibition is going to be in the form of these amazing light boxes that I have, that will be in streets up and down Duke Street. This one here is in the library. It's the first one we got installed, and then they will be in various businesses up and down Duke Street. And tonight the main installation will actually be outside in Town Hall Square, and then from tomorrow it will move into an empty shop at the market, so it can be viewed from the street 24 hours a day. And there's going to be about another, I think there's 3, 4, 5 installed all the way along Duke Street, as well as kind of printouts in some of the other shop windows. And then there will be 8 of these light boxes in the installation tonight. Next slide, please, Tom. So yeah, as well as working with Barrow Library, the archives at Barrow and Susan, and Cumbria Archives, the Sankey collection that Signal Film and Media have recently spent the last few years digitising through a Heritage Lottery grant has been an amazing source of imagery. The Sankeys were father and son team who were known for documenting the kind of like life, people and places of the northwest of England. And they ran a photography shop, originally at number 78 Duke Street, and later moving to these larger premises at number 81 Duke Street. Next slide, please, Tom. So 81 Duke Street now is still there, but is this kind of boarded up takeaway that I think were closed due to fire. So I've tried to turn it back into the Sankey shop in some sort of way by taking that image of the shop window and putting it back into the shop and recreating the shop with on those boards. I have actually since been and touched up and painted the other boards black, so it looks really good. We've had some really fantastic feedback from the community as well as we've been installing this, and everyone's saying, oh, it looks really good, you're really making the place look a lot better. The guy from the business next door was absolutely delighted with the work we were doing, saying it made it look more vibrant and look much better than just having the boards. So we're really, really pleased with the outcome of this particular piece, and hopefully it's something that, yeah, hopefully it will withstand the battering of weather that it's going to get over the next couple of days. Next slide, please, Tom.
That's it, I think.
Is that it? We're done, right? We're done. We whizzed through there this morning. So yeah, hopefully that gives everyone a little bit of a flavour of the work that I've been making, the project that it's been a part of, and some of the things that you can come and see in Barrow. And yeah, my apologies for whizzing through everything so quick. As you can imagine, it's install day today. And inside my head is like a bunch of squirrels going around on a wheel. It's a bit chaotic. We've got lots to do, lots of light boxes to get out and about, and yeah.
I'm just looking at. I'm just flicking through chat because I can't. When I'm sharing my screen, I can't see chat. Some lots of Helen. This is great. A real soft spot for Barrow. Spent time with Bon, which is full of noises there. Thanks. Yeah, and Amy, go on, Amy, come off. What do you mean? Barrow is really Cumbria's creative hub.
Well, I think a bit like Helen. I mean, I'm from Carlisle, live in Carlisle, but I have got a soft spot for Barrow because I've done work with them, with Signal. And just, I think this is where it's having three, key organisations which are creative and which do work together. They're not just working in isolation. And then you've got, Barrowfull as well, which is helping to bring things together. Barrow, I really do think it is, the creative hub. It just seems to have a lot more activity and stuff than goes on in Carlisle. And, there are lots of different reasons for why that might be and for why these organisations were set up. But yeah, I just wish I couldn't make it there yesterday because of weather and stuff. It's like it's a 4-hour round trip from Carlisle to Barrow. But honest, I would probably move there if I didn't have friends and family connections here because it is so creative. It's just got so much going on.
It was one of the things that really struck me when I first came here. I was really taken aback. I mean, coming from Manchester, where I don't know, it feels to me in a way that in Manchester, there's kind of almost like a sense of entitlement. And then coming up here, people don't care. They're just getting on with it and they're just doing it. And that I was bowled over by the quality of work that's produced up here as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely taken aback. Signal Film and Media, Fawn, Art Gene, just absolutely taken aback by people just quietly cracking on and doing it and producing absolute quality work. Yeah. People's
Republic of Barrow. Let's hear it for that. Did you feel that that there's quite a lot of co-creation work going on in this piece of work, it seems to me, Sarah? Were you embraced and supported in people's reactions?
Yeah, really embraced, really supportive. Susan at the archives couldn't have been more welcoming and more supportive. All of the volunteer team that had been working on the Sankey collection to digitise stuff were again more supportive and just thrilled that the images were being used. And the team here at Art Gene, I mean, wow, I couldn't have done any of this. Oh yes, absolutely. Let's not forget the Theatre Factory. Absolutely agree. Andrew has been here helping out, and we've had help from Theatre Factory in getting some of the light boxes together. It's fantastic support from absolutely everybody, and it really does feel like it's been a joint effort. This is not, and I almost feel like a bit of a fraud with my name all over this exhibition because it's not just been me, it's been absolutely everybody, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without the team and all the people here that have been behind me on it.
Oh, that's nice to hear. And Cockermouth, Derek and Kate talking about how in Cockermouth there's still, a number of individual businesses. And after the floods, Kate, so tell us what happened. What did you do?
So if you recall the floods in 2009 and again in 2015, first time in particular, when the whole of Cockermouth Main Street was totally decimated, and all the buildings had to be completely stripped back to the brickwork and closed for months and months and months. One of the really positive things that came out of it was that the Kirkgates Heritage Group got some funding to blow up some of their historic images of the town shops, in particular shop fronts, and got those put into the windows of the affected buildings, and it made the sort of main street into something really interesting out of something terribly bleak. So, and I know that, they since, all sorts has happened on the back of that. But people have an endless fascination, I think, with historic photos of their own town and their own shops and people, and just looking at people in their sort of 1960s hats and 1970s cars and 1900 shop fronts and clothing and costume. It was just this fascinating stuff for a lot of people. I think it's really, really relatable and accessible stuff.
Yeah, it's so vibrant, and I think it really reminds me of that time when the high street was vibrant, and like Derek's comment really resonates. I think one of the first shops I went into when I came up to Barrow was probably TNT Records, but then went in Wilko, my absolute favourite shop of all time. And I know that was a family-run high street chain. But in the time that I've been in Barrow, that is another chain that's disappeared from our high street. Marks and Spencer's has closed down here. Debenhams has gone. And it's like the heart's gone. And this is happening all across kind of northern post-industrial towns. The heart's gone and everything's moving out. You've got your Tesco's and your big kind of heartless sort of places on the outskirts of town. And it's really taking everything out of the centre. And yeah, it's a crying shame. But yeah.
So if we can, we should use those shops that.
Yeah, use them or lose them.
Yeah.
And the same with the libraries and all these resources. Use them or lose them.
Sarah, thank you so much. So your opening is this evening, 6:30 to 8:30, and then it sticks around. And obviously people can walk along Duke Street and see all the bits and bobs that are up, weather permitting. I'm sure you've done it hugely rigorously so that they can fight off any wind or rain that comes their way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they'll be in the market probably until February, January at least, maybe even February. And then keep your eye on the Art Gene website for news of the Social History Conference in January. Yeah.
Smashing. Well, you've probably got to rush off and finish off. So
thank you so much for having me, everybody, though. It's been a pleasure to meet you and chat with you all this morning.
Great to see you, Sarah. Thank you.
Bye.
Right. Well, before we also find out about what other great things are going on in Barrow, we're just going to cross to Workington, metaphorically speaking, where there was a bit of a sad story. I know you might have seen it in the papers on the telly about Workington's Theatre Royal being broken into. Kate, you've had a little think about this, and I think we're going to watch something. Is that right? Tell us what happened.
So I don't know whether you've seen the images, but yeah, last week the Workington's Theatre Royal, which is a lovely little theatre dating back to the 1860s, was broken into by vandals and just attacked and trashed in the most awful way. And I guess as somebody who ran a little theatre for a long time, it's just heartbreaking. It happened once at the Kirkgate when I was there on a very small scale, but I cannot imagine how they felt when they encountered what they saw. Because it's volunteer run, it's right in the heart of the town. They're just about where they have now started their, about to start a new production, Last of the Summer Wine, and I just really, really felt for them. So I wrote to the chair and said how sorry we were and that CACN is here for them if we can be helpful. And I asked if anybody could come on this Friday morning's call, and for a time it looked as though they might be able to, but they couldn't for, they're busy volunteers trying to cope with this. Yeah, and it's not that long since all of this was refurbished as well, which is the awful thing. And as they say, the theatre was already struggling in common with most others, most other community assets like this. So I think we'll just play the little piece on board TV, because that kind of sums it up really, and you hear from some of the volunteers themselves. So thank you, Amy.
Every theatre wants to put on a performance to bring the house down, but not like this. Last Wednesday, the Theatre Royal was broken into with a week to go before their opening performance of their Christmas play.
I was coming in to do some painting on the set. Before rehearsals started, I entered the theatre and the lock wasn't shut properly on the door. And as I entered, I discovered lots of rubbish throughout the whole of the foyer, and discovered the smashed glasses on the front of the fridges, and the lots of alcohol that had been smashed along the back of the bar.
Now, staff at the theatre actually believe that the intruders used props from the upcoming production of Last of the Summer Wine in their damage to the theatre, including this cricket ball and this prop gun. Taking into account all of the stock that was lost and damage to the infrastructure, the damage is estimated to be over £8,000.
Hurt, anger, and complete disbelief that a group of people could destroy all our hard work so easily, so completely. Around the room in here we have photos that have been lovingly found and backed onto the walls. These are photos of previous shows around the room. These are our friends, our colleagues, our memories, and lots of members who are on the walls here are no longer with us. It is a real shame that these photos have been vandalised.
Well, I was devastated, and some people said, oh, well, I cried. Well, I didn't cry. I was very annoyed. I was very angry because I felt that, you know, a passionate group of people doing something that's useful in the community and for the community, that it can be ruined by some mindless individual that decides that they're going to wreck it.
Police say they arrested 4 16-year-old boys in connection with the damage, who have since been released on bail. But for the volunteers running the show, their minds are fixed on making repairs in time for opening night.
We've had lots of offers of help from all over the county with regard to materials and money, and we've even had an offer from the Sound Centre at Carlisle for any sound equipment we wanted, and all the local theatres have obviously offered their help as well.
I mean, that's community, isn't it? It's not just our audience, it's other people who care about their town of Workington and an iconic old building like this.
Well, I'm joined now by Anne Bowman, Chair of Playgoers Workington. Now, Anne, all of this happened with a week to go before the opening Christmas performance. Now, how have people been supporting you?
Well, as soon as it happened, we got some information out to our members and people who had supported us in the past to show them some of the pictures and what's been going on. And I've been really surprised and delighted by the amount of emails and support that we've had back from the community.
Is there other ways that people can support you ahead of opening night?
Well, it'd be great if people would come and see the show. We've had a difficult time, as our theatre have had, since COVID, and getting people back into live theatre. I'm hoping that it'll be a performance that people will really find funny and they'll enjoy.
Well, thank you very much, Anne. There we have a performance of Last of the Summer Wine, which hopefully will let some of the people here at the theatre forget some of the unfortunateness that happened because of this vandalism.
Thanks. So we'll stay in touch with the Theatre Royal. These are people that I know because it's just down the road from Cockermouth. You really do feel for them, don't you? What a horrible, mindless, senseless thing to happen. The only thing you can hope is that good things will come of it, and I have a feeling that is the case, that people will and clearly already have rallied round. You can donate to their to the Theatre Royal if you want to chip in, and I think Amy's about to pop the link in chat any moment now if you feel inclined to do that. It just really reinforces how important the little places are like this in our communities, as they said in the clip. But we wanted to just share it with you, even though we weren't able to get anybody here to chat about it. Tom.
Thank you, Kate. Good luck to those at the Theatre Royal. I've not been to see Last Summer Wine. I think it might finish tomorrow evening. I can't make
Yeah,
it.
yeah, you can go and see it now. It is still possible to book and go
Yeah,
and see it.
yeah, and
It's
then-
on till Saturday.
Yeah.
Is that tomorrow?
It
Yes.
is. Yeah. And there's other bits and bobs on coming up before Christmas as well. Good luck to them. Right, let's head back down to Barrow now, and the lovely Chris Dennett and Jennie Dennett. Isn't that surprising? They've got the same surname. Who comprise Artfly. I went down there last night for the opening of Relax into 2050, and it was just a really joyous evening. So I'm going to hand over to, I know Andrew was there as well, so hello to Andrew, and Derek, who I didn't say hello to, but he was there too. But this is a really lovely exhibition about free thinking, creativity, and imagination. I'm going to pull up my slides because I took some pics, and I'm going to hand over to Chris. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm quite tired because I'm at the other end of the process. And Sarah, we did our setup yesterday, so there's a lot of stress going into it. So if I start rambling, give me some sort of signal. But yeah, so we felt really sort of quite privileged to be offered this sort of huge space by Signal to sort of to fill. And the brief is part of their tidal sort of theme. Sort of coming to the end of it now, which is all about the sort of the coast and climate change and things like that. So we wanted to do something slightly different, because a lot of the climate change stuff I've seen artists do is all about what horrible things could happen if we don't do anything, and all the bad sort of dystopian visions that if we go over 2 degrees of warming and all these sorts of things. And we started thinking about, well, is there another way to look at it, and can that help? Is it a better, approach to take? And it was actually chatting to our daughter about it and talking about this whole, if people get this sort of feeling of helplessness, they're less likely to do anything. And if we start looking at the things people are actually doing that are going well, not ignoring the stuff that's going badly, but also sort of highlighting the stuff that people are doing to combat climate change, especially local things, that maybe things will improve and go better. And my daughter just said, "Oh, that's solar punk, Dad. Don't you know about solar punk?" And I hadn't heard anything about solar punk before, but solar punk is exactly that. It's the artistic side of this idea that if you concentrate on the future that you want to happen, and you sort of focus on that rather than the dystopian sort of annihilation of our planet, that you're more likely to get there. So I think of it more like a sprinter. If you got 2 sprinters and one who's just focusing on failing the whole time and focusing on everything going wrong, and the one who's sort of imagining winning and then imagining training hard to do the winning and focusing on that sort of thing, which one's more likely to succeed? And I looked into the science of this, and there was 2 science experiments sort of performed, one very upbeat and joyful, and one sort of quite tragic. The upbeat one is that, Tom, you could go on to the next slide if you like. So the upbeat one is that if people do hear more positive news stories, we are more likely to get involved in local sort of climate positive things, from litter picking to seagrass planting to helping restoring forests and things. So I mean, that was really positive. So the more people read about these sorts of things, the more likely they were to get involved. But on the flip side, and this I think comes from our evolution, is that the more negative words put into a news headline online, the more clicks they get on that. And they can measure it by word. So every time they put another negative word in the headline, the number of clicks increased to an absurd level. The headlines were really long, with just complete portmanteaus of all the negative words you could possibly put together in there, and more clicks were happening. So it's sort of like, we're sort of fighting our evolution to look at the positive things. But we've been trying to do it during this project. So this is the space we've sort of created, within Signal. It's a vast space, and Phil from Signal spent days and days painting it green, because we're not big fans of sort of just white wall gallery spaces. They've got a lovely brick wall on one side, and the other wall is this massive sort of white expanse. And now it's a lovely mossy green colour. So what we pitched to Signal was we wanted to create a lovely hug of a space, a sort of positive, just somewhere you could go into and just feel more positive about what's going on, with lots of positive news stories on the walls. Could you go on to the next slide, please, Tom? So yeah, one of the centerpieces in this space is a large geodesic dome that we've there's a sort of kit you can get to make these, join these poles together. We got all the poles from the Coppice Cooperative, picked them all up from Carnforth, which I'm sure Lorna, she's part of that cooperative, I think. Yes. Yeah. So we were quite late in the day. A lot of the sticks had gone, but they had enough for us to build this dome. I've been obsessed with geodesic domes for a while, and this idea of a sort of a warm, positive hug of a space seemed to lend itself to a round, sort of lovely space that people could go and sit in. You can see my daughter in the middle of that picture, just chilling out. Last night she came and basically sat there or on the beanbag and sort of gazed up. So we're projecting onto the sides of this dome. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, so we're entering the dome now. We're stepping into the future. So yeah, we're projecting onto the side of it images from all the various projects that we've got sort of information boards on around the sides, but also we like to have interactive things. So the image you're seeing at the moment is actually from a webcam. We've called it the dome mixing desk behind the back. So we're kind of imagining how this will work is, like, families might come along to this and parents will sit and chill out in the dome, and their kids will go around the back and arrange detritus under the webcam, and that produces these kaleidoscopic images onto the side of it. But with the sort of projections, we've also got a soundtrack that we've been working with a friend of ours on, Charlie Derbyshire. He's a Cumbrian born and bred. He's moved down south, but we're trying to entice him back up. But yeah, so we worked with him. With Jenny went out to record people seagrass planting, and which I'll explain a bit more in a bit, and all the lovely sounds around the coast in Barrow. And we wove that in, or Charlie wove that in with other. We've got Anne Hopper from used to be the newsreader on Radio Cumbria. She'd read out some headlines, imagining what the headlines could be, positive headlines for Barrow's future. And it was, yeah, we've sort of wove that in a sort of upbeat, inspiring sort of townscape that sort of just lulls you as you sit in there. And hopefully, we're sort of under no illusions to this. All this stuff I'm talking about, solar punk, I imagine a lot of people will just come in and have a lovely sit down, and that's absolutely fine. You know, if people do want to get more involved and read the boards and things, you know, that's great too. But yeah, just come and have a nice sit down in there. Anyway, you can see we've tried to live this solar punk vision. So everything we've made, like the mats on the ground, are made out of old fishing nets. The seats I made out of pallets from CGP. Jenny made a lot of the fabrics, was seconds and stuff that was going to be thrown away. Jenny did an awful lot of sewing on this. I think I might have broken during this project. But yeah, if you want to move on, Tom, I'll try and remember what's going. Oh yes, this is the dome controller behind the dome. So this is where, you know, you can come and create your images that get projected.
I love this. I think that's the one that I made on the left hand side there.
Oh,
so much I took a photograph.
Nothing says positive future than a one-eyed ladybird next to a stag beetle. I think that's what they say. Yeah, so the idea of this is we actually went into schools with it as part of this project. In fact, could you go on to nip about a bit, Tom, and go on to the schools one? Yeah. So we went into schools with that kaleidoscope, and we asked the kids in there to describe their positive futures. We asked them, we put it to them, what is the future you'd like to see? Can you draw it and write a few words about it? And then we also had them use the kaleidoscope as well. Explained a bit about the project. We were worried before going in that, you know, primary school kids, maybe they're all jaded and they all think it's going to be terrible. But it was lovely to see that it is all still jetpacks and underwater trains. And one boy wrote, he said it's only £15 to go to the moon, which is quite nice. We had some anti-gravity football, which they're like normal football but more upsy downsy, I think. A rainbow, we could walk over to Millham. Interesting. I'd like to see that built. Yeah, so it was really, really nice. We had very few sort of the sort of the horror of the future had not set in Ruse School, just up the road from Signal. So that's good to see. And I explained to them how a lot of imagining the future has brought about lots of things we have today. So we talked about Arthur C. Clarke coming up with the idea of satellites, and Isaac Asimov coming up with the idea of beaming solar power down to Earth, which is something that's just started happening because it's now cheap enough to send the solar panels into space, beam down the electricity that we can use on Earth. And that was that idea came up in the 1950s. NASA engineers heard about it, said, well, this is possible, but it's way too expensive. But nowadays we can do it, so they've started doing it. And there was a woman telling me all the things in science fiction last night, and I can't remember half of them. But it's things like, mobile phones were in Star Trek way before. I'd love that little device I have to tell you what's wrong with you. I can't remember what they called it in Star Trek. But all these things, imagining them with creativity and art gives us a sort of impetus to make it. If we don't imagine it, I'd love to hear what our politicians think of if they get their way and everything goes perfectly. What does the world look like? Do we have borders? Do we have money? What does it look like? I've never heard that sort of, the visions of the future. It's all about all the problems we've got at the moment. Yeah, I think it would be interesting. Sorry, Tom, I've gone all over the place. So yeah, these are the futures from the kids, and they also did the kaleidoscope images, which it's really nice to take that kaleidoscope in, because what we like doing in schools is doing things where everyone in there is not relying on your talent as an artist or anything. You can produce something quickly and easily that you can be proud of, and that everybody can get involved. And making those little kaleidoscope images, every kid in that class came up one by one, and they had a vision. Some of them meticulously lined things up to get the kaleidoscopic view they wanted, and others, which would have been me, just chuck stuff on there to see what would happen and turn the dials and move the sliders around. And then, yeah, they all had a vision of what they wanted to do.
Chris, I'm going to pull you back to the other themes that you pull. I just took pictures of these. So there we. Do you want to talk about that first of all? Because that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, this I made this yesterday morning. So we needed something. We've got a weird wibbly slow water tank behind the dome, but we were worried people wouldn't know it was there, so we wanted to make a sign. And the whole sort of design theme throughout this is marrying technology and organic plants and trees and things like that, which is a whole solar punk idea. So it's all about, I wanted it, there's hexagons and there's shapes, human-made shapes, but it's organic and it's wibbly and it's gooey. So we've splashed out and bought ourselves a laser cut and pretty much laser cut everything now. So we've laser cut this sign, and we didn't realize it's going to produce such a lovely shadow. So we ended up hanging it sort of off the wall to create this. I really like it. I think I want to play with shadows more. But yeah, to create this going around the dome thing in a slightly different way. And that was one of the things people were drawn to almost, straight away, which was brilliant.
And we'll come
So,
and
yes,
see a little film. We'll see a little film of that at the end. But there's 4 other things that you concentrated on.
Yes.
So I just took some pictures. These are the first 2.
Yeah, so around the dome, so in the sort of, you can get the soundscape going on. We wanted all the positive news, so this whole room to be a sort of cocoon you in the eye. This is the lovely green that Phil painted behind, which really sets off the organic hexagons. And again, the shadows, so we lifted them off. But yeah, some of the stories we've added to the wall. So the Hard Knot Forest one, it's going up in the Duddon Valley. So there's forestry land they can't use anymore. And they're working with, bizarrely, Leeds University. I mean, Cumbria University are part of it too, but it's mostly headed by Leeds University. And they're turning it back into native woodland or peatland, whatever it would have been. And a lot of that is letting nature take its course, planting where needed. And we went up and earlier in the summer and were part of this. And it's a lovely group of people. And they're having, what's so inspiring about it is all the nature that's moving back in. And it's sort of, it hasn't taken much to get otters. I'm not a big bird person, but they're all getting excited about, is it jay? I can't remember, but all sorts of animals moving back in. Lizards are going back in there. The butterflies, they do butterfly surveys up there, moth traps and things, and they're all coming back really, really quickly. And they're trying to tie up that woodland with the woodland on the coast to create I can't quite remember, the largest something somewhere, the stats. So that's a lovely project that's going on that people can get involved with. I mean, if you feel inspired, sign up. They run, and I don't think they're doing through the winter, but next summer, get involved and go along. The Wales one interested me. I think I saw the latest Planet Earth, and I think they might have been talking about this a bit on there. But there's 2. I started getting subscribed to a magazine called Positive News, and they had 2 wonderful stories about whales. Firstly, they found through sonic recordings in the Seychelles that there's a new blue whale. Well, they think it's a blue whale breeding ground there, which are very hard to track down. And then the numbers are recovering because they've paid the people in the Seychelles, I can't remember how much money it is, to create a reserve, stop fishing in this particular area and make it a safe space. I can't remember how many hectares it was. And it seems to be working. The whales seem to be coming back. And what the whales do for us in return, I mean, I don't think they signed the contract, but they create they go swim down to the bottom of the ocean, eat all the squid and things down there, come up, and then they poo near the surface, and the poo gets eaten by all the microalgae on the surface of the water, and that creates a whole sort of ecosystem up there. All these animals thrive at the surface, soaking up CO2, and then when they die, and the whales themselves, when they die, they sink to the bottom and become the sediment. So they're carbon capture machines in themselves. I mean, they're like 150 tons, some of these whales. So it's not insignificant, the whales themselves. But the bringing up and pooing at the surface seems to be doing a world of good too. So yeah. Oh, the seagrass, important. So there's a seagrass talk tonight in Signal Film, and it's before Sarah's Lost Shots opening. So Signal have set it up so people can come along, find out all about the seagrass planting that's going up all up the west coast. It's going on all over Britain, and then go along to Sarah's light boxes in the middle of town. But seagrass, if you don't know about seagrass, I didn't know much about it at all. So it just grows in the shallows around, and there used to be a lot more of it, but human activity around the edges, around the coast, has sort of destroyed a lot of it. And so if we can bring that back, it soaks up CO2. I can't remember the stats for the board. This is why I need Jenny around. But it soaks up an awful lot of CO2. I think it's more productive than rainforest, and it doesn't take up any farmland. And what they're trying to do with this project is find out where it's currently growing and expand those areas to join them up. It also creates ecosystems. So, it's a boost for fisheries, and fish stocks, everything that's going on around there. The seagrass is sort of the little mini coral reefs of Britain that go around there. And airships. Sorry, Tom.
No, I was going to prompt you and say, and airships.
Yeah, thank you. I need someone prompting me. Yeah, this one, the one on there looks like a bum, which I love. But yeah, the coronation song, back when in the yard they tried making airships in sort of wartime, and we've got a whole song on the other side about a vision from Barrow's past from 1911 of how they were going to build airships in Barrow. And they were going to go take people all over the world. So they were going to go, I mean, mainly pop over to Belfast. I think it was going to New York, coming back to Bigger Bank for tea. But it was this really wonderful sort of operatic number. And now airships are coming back. It's the thing. And what we've got on the sign there is a few British companies. There's a whole bunch of companies over the world sort of vying for this. It's a sort of eco way of getting out around, which, you know, you can, there's solar airships. I think there's a French one going around very shortly, going to try and go around the world fully on solar, and it can theoretically, you know, fly forever, that one. And the ones that, even the ones that use fuel, use like a tiny percentage of the fuels an aircraft would use. But the nice thing is it is slower, but you can park anywhere, so you don't have to have the whole airport infrastructure, and it flies a lot lower than a plane, so you get lovely views the whole way. So it becomes more of a sort of, the travel is the experience as well as the, you know, the destination, and it's quiet, so you don't have, you know, the noise of a hovercraft or whatever you have. Yeah, and I just love this idea of bringing airships back to Barrow. Yes, thanks, Tom. Keep prompting me. Yeah, another part. So we've sort of peppered the exhibition with various digital things, and Sarah mentioned this earlier, but the Signal have been involved in getting the sort of Sankey collection archive up online, and they've got these two massive screens up on the wall. They don't want to move because one of them, the third screen, broke, so they're there, and I thought, oh, we've got to use them for something impressive. So I took some of the Sankey pictures and I've started dabbling to see what AI could do. I was really worried about this. I was worried that if this AI is just really good, there's just no need for me. There's no need for an artistic, you know, any creative input anymore. But it actually turned out much more collaboratively. So as Tom's quite nicely done here, we've got the Sankey image, and the image on the left there is a kit car. It's great. It's got a chain on the outside of it, but we fed that in to the AI and then told the AI we wanted this sort of solar punk futuristic version of this photo, and after many iterations we got the version on the right. It's very hard for it to put humans in. I'm hoping that's not a vision of the future, that all the humans are gone, but yeah, it turned out to be collaborative insofar as the way you work with it, you write your prompt, it produces nonsense, you make it better, you change things, you change the image, start drawing onto the image things you might want as sort of like keying in points for the AI to create things. So it was way more collaborative than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, we've got a series of these going along, and people were very intrigued by them. And again, it's sort of creating an image of sort of possibilities. It made Barrow very lustrous and green. There were lots and lots of plants growing everywhere, which was nice. One of the submarines it created, there was a submarine launch on the Sankey pictures that we put in there, and the AI produced a flying submarine piloted by trees, which is interesting. So maybe we'll see that. Oh yes, we've gone beyond the Wonder Dome. I wanted to call this whole project Beyond the Wonder Dome, but Jenny said I wasn't allowed. And this is, we've called it a slow water tank. So you stand in front of the wall and you see your images projected onto the wall, but it warps you. If you stand still, nothing happens to you. And I was using this as quite a heavy metaphor for, if we don't act, nothing interesting happens. There's Tom not acting in the middle. There's me and Phil acting. Look at the change that's happening. Yeah, so what I'm hoping is by putting this behind the dome, and it happened a bit, one of a reviewer came up from Manchester last night and he said when everyone had gone, he was just playing around behind the dome, twisting around. And that's exactly what we want from this. But yes, and there's me and Jenny. I wish Jenny was here, but she's out on a BBC job this morning. But yeah, it was great. And it was lovely to work with Signal. They were such a great group, a great bunch of people, and just sorry, I'll stop there.
It's a great exhibition, and it's just makes you think differently, puts a smile on your face. Lots of different age groups I think will enjoy it as well. Chris and Jenny should be congratulated on your imagination. Jenny looked magnificent in some really lovely white wedge Wellington boots that I think she'd picked up from Oxfam, she said, that morning. She looked great. And you look great as well, Chris. I can see you haven't changed since last night too. So that's always to be applauded too. So thank you so much, Chris and Jenny, for that in Signal. And I know it's going through to the end of January, I think. And I'm going to try and turn around a podcast episode before Christmas, using some of that soundscape material and also that beautiful song from 1911, singing about airships and what they can do. I haven't been able to look at chat. Kate, have you been able to look at chat while I've been sharing my screen? Anything come up or anything you want to pick up, Kate?
There's a little chat going on about Benjamin Zephaniah, understandably, because everybody will have heard that he sadly died from brain tumour did he die yesterday? I think he died yesterday. And there's lots of interesting comments here. The link, the reason why this has come up is Andrew's point about a plea from Benjamin Zephaniah for more positive news items to be included in national broadcast. Do you want to pick up on that, Andrew? The link with Chris's exhibition there.
Yeah, no, it was really striking because Chris had talked about that last night, about how negative news is a sort of feedback circuit that makes us feel rubbish. And then this morning they played just an extract from when Zephaniah was a guest editor last Christmas, I think, and he was taking the Today programme on, saying they should broadcast more positive, happy news items, because like me and many other people, the world's full of really positive, kind, generous activities and acts going on. But we don't hear about them. And he was just making this plea in his typically open-hearted, warm way that we should do it, and not taking any objections that somehow that wouldn't work. And, you know, he was interested in Mrs. Bloggs's new wallpaper, and he just wouldn't take any resistance and was just saying we should do it. And he's got a point. And he was an idealist. I like that quote from Peter saying, I'd like there to be a revolution, but everybody's too busy shopping. Both funny and very true. But we'll miss him, I think. I certainly will.
Yeah. And also, I think I see Peter's put a link into the whale poop poem. I haven't clicked on it yet, but that looks intriguing in itself. A poem about whale poop. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for that reflection. And Chris, more, please. Sue wants you to bring it to the north of the county, so if you can just sort that briefly, that would be good, because it's got some, I don't know how you transport that dome, but I'm sure that Jenny would come up with a plan. But anyway, I just commend it to everybody if you get a chance to go and see it, and also all the other great stuff going on in Barrow. It's just, it puts, you know, it puts a spring in your step metaphorically, but also literally, I think, as you walk out the door. So thank you to Signal for hosting that and for supporting that. And it was nice to catch up with Lauren there as well, and various other people too. Right, I think we're done. It's 28 minutes past 10. I always like to finish on time. Next week, next week is the last one before the new year. So be festive. John Hegley's going to come on next week. John Hegley, performance poet and comedian. He's doing some stuff in Carlisle, and he's going to come on to the Friday Zoom next week. And also we're going to hear about how the Liverpool Philharmonic are coming to Barrow in January for, I think, the first of a 3-year programme of events. I'm looking at people based in Barrow nodding gently. So someone from the Liverpool Phil is going to come on. I think their first concert is the middle of January. So really exciting that link-up's been made, and someone from the Liverpool Phil and possibly someone else from Barrow will come on and talk about that. So John Higley next week, and a bit of culture from Liverpool Philharmonic. So it should be good.